A secret Soviet strike craft that flew like a plane, hit like a missile boat, and stayed hidden from the world for decades. That alone sounds like enough for a full episode. But it gets even better when you put it next to the other apex predators of their time. The U.S. battleship built to outrun and outgun anything, the destroyer that became the universal knife fighter, the submarine that terrified merchant crews, and the carrier that refused to die. Together, they show how different nations tried to build the ultimate weapon at sea, and why only one of them ended up as a flying sea monster. USS Iowa was the point where classic battleship design hit its final dangerous peak. Fully loaded, she was around 57,000 tons of steel and machinery, but still shaped for speed rather than just brute mass. Her main battery of 9 16-inch 50-caliber guns sat in 3 triple turrets, each weapon throwing an armor-piercing shell weighing roughly 1,225 pounds, out past 20 miles when coupled with radar range-finding and modern fire control. That meant Iowa could open a duel well before most opponents had a reliable solution and keep accurate fire on targets in poor visibility or at night, something earlier battleships struggled to do. Under the armor, she had the heart of a fast warship, 8 boilers feeding 4-geared steam turbines, together producing around 212,000 shaft horsepower, an enormous figure by World War II standards. In practice, this translated into top speeds over 32 knots, faster than most cruisers and practically all foreign battleships, allowing her to steam with carrier task forces instead of slowing them down. Speed wasn't just a luxury. It let Iowa choose when to close, when to turn away from torpedo threats, and how to position for a maximum gunnery advantage. Survivability came from a carefully layered protection scheme. The main armor belt around vital spaces was roughly 12 inches thick, backed by internal bulkheads and multiple armored decks to shield magazines and machinery from shells and bombs. Below the waterline, a deep torpedo defense system with multiple void and liquid-filled compartments helped absorb underwater blasts before they reached the inner hull. On top of that, the ship bristled with secondary and anti-aircraft weapons, 10 twin 5-inch/38 dual-purpose mounts, and by late war, dozens of 40mm and 20mm guns under radar-guided directors. The result was a battleship that could punch hard at extreme range, sprint with the fastest fleets, and stand up to both shells and aircraft, a genuine end boss of the big gun era. This submarine was designed to be a long-range hunter, not just a coastal ambusher. On the surface, USS Wahoo displaced about 1,525 tons and over 2,400 tons submerged, with diesel-electric machinery giving roughly 21 knots on top and around 9 knots underwater, enough speed to maneuver into firing position and then dive away before escorts could react. Her pressure hull and fuel capacity were sized for extended Pacific patrols, letting her range far from base and stay on station long enough to seriously hurt Japanese shipping routes. Offensively, she was heavily armed for her size, 10 21-inch torpedo tubes, 6 in the bow and 4 in the stern, allowed both head-on and snapshot attacks from behind, with up to 24 torpedoes carried for multiple engagements on a single patrol. A deck gun provided a cheaper way to finish off damaged or lightly defended targets without wasting torpedoes, and light anti-aircraft weapons offered at least some protection when caught on the surface. Compared to many Axis submarines, boats like Wahoo had better living conditions, more reliable systems, and room for advanced electronics, which mattered over long, tense cruises. What made Wahoo a legend wasn't just the hardware, but how aggressively it was used. With radar to help find targets and improve fire control to set up accurate spreads, the boat could stalk convoys at night, fire from unexpected angles, and then dive deep while escorts hunted in the wrong place. On several patrols, she penetrated heavily patrolled areas, attacked multiple ships in a single action, and escaped under counterattack, building a reputation on both sides of the Pacific as a particularly dangerous adversary. When Wahoo was lost in 1943, her sinking removed one submarine, but by then her score and her daring tactics had already turned the name into a symbol of how a single well-handled boat could disrupt an entire theater's logistics. This carrier wasn't just another big flat deck, it was the ship that refused to stay out of the fight. As built, USS Enterprise displaced about 19,800 tons standard and roughly 25,500 tons at full load, with an overall length just over 800 feet and a beam a bit above 100 feet, giving enough hangar and deck space for a wartime air group of around 80 aircraft. That air group mixed fighters, dive bombers, and torpedo bombers, letting the ship launch full strike packages, defensive combat air patrols, and anti-submarine sorties from the same floating airfield. Her machinery was sized to keep up with the fastest task forces. 4 geared steam turbines fed by 8 boilers produced roughly 120,000 shaft horsepower, driving 4 screws to about 32 to 33 knots, fast enough to reposition the whole air group across hundreds of miles of ocean in a single day and still dodge submarine and surface threats. Defensively, she carried 8 5-inch dual-purpose guns, and as the war went on, an increasingly dense forest of 40mm Bofors and 20mm Oerlikons, all progressively tied into air search and fire control radar so that incoming raids could be spotted early, tracked, and engaged with coordinated flak and fighters. What turned Enterprise into the carrier that kept coming back was how she absorbed damage and returned to action. Strong internal subdivision, protected aviation fuel systems, and careful magazine layout reduced the risk that a single bomb or torpedo would trigger a fatal chain reaction, while well-trained damage control teams could contain fires and flooding under brutal conditions. She took bomb hits, near misses, and kamikaze attacks across multiple campaigns, yet after hasty repairs at forward bases or stateside yards, she reappeared at Midway, the Eastern Solomons, Santa Cruz, the Gilberts, the Marianas, Leyte, and beyond, earning a combat record that made her arguably the most battle-hardened and iconic carrier of the war. MD-160 Lun looked like something that escaped from a Cold War sketchbook. While other navies refined carriers and missile cruisers, the USSR backed a very different idea. A strike craft that would never climb high, never show a big radar return at altitude, and simply race in just meters above the sea. Officially, it was a ship, but with a hull about 74 meters long, a wingspan around 44 meters, and 8 NK-87 turbofan engines clustered in the nose, it behaved like a gigantic low-flying aircraft locked to the screen of air above the water. The power layout was brutal and simple. All 8 engines blew high-velocity air under and past the clipped wing roots to yank the machine out of the water and onto the ground effect cushion, then kept it skimming at roughly 450 to 550 kilometers per hour a few meters above the waves. That put it in an odd tactical niche, far faster than any surface ship, but so low that coastal radar and shipborne sensors had much less time to react compared to a conventional bomber coming in higher. On the dorsal spine sat 6 huge anti-ship missiles in angled launch tubes, backed by twin 23mm cannon mounts for close defense, turning Loon into a self-contained, very fast missile boat that happened to fly. In practice, it was deployed on the Caspian Sea in the late 1980s as part of the Soviet Navy, operating from specialized coastal infrastructure and limited by sea state and visibility. Only this single combat unit was completed. A second hull, planned as a search and rescue variant, never entered full service before funding and political support collapsed. The concept was brutally specialized, maintenance-intensive, and tightly tied to good weather and a specific theater. But visually and technically, it remained unlike anything any other Navy ever took beyond prototype stage. That's why decades later, grainy photos of this Caspian Sea monster still look less like a retired weapon and more like leaked art from a secret program the rest of the world never quite caught up to. Thanks for watching this tour through the most dangerous steel predators of their time. If you want to help keep this kind of deep dive history alive, support the channel, like the video, subscribe, and share it with someone who still thinks ships are just ships. And now it's over to you. In the comments, write what you want to see next. Another battleship, a submarine hunter, a full episode on echinoplans, or something completely different. And the most interesting ideas will shape the next series.